who I am and knowing my identity, knowing what's true about me from the one who made me, that can inform everything.
Welcome to Permission Slips, a space for you to practice paying attention to your life with self-compassion and kindness, so you can experience the wholeness, purpose, and joy you were made for. I'm Jillian DeBritz, a life and leadership coach and a recovering perfectionist, learning alongside you how to give myself permission to be human. I'm so glad you are here with me today for this conversation with my longtime friend, Araya Williams. Araya, welcome. Thanks for being here.
I'm so glad to be here.
Oh, it's going to be really
So
fun.
thankful. Yes.
Yeah, such a joy, such a joy. Well, Araya and I have known each other for a very long time, over many years, and have been in and out of contact over that time. But I want to say we met in 2000. It was 2000.
Yep.
26 years ago. Oh my gosh. Yes. And so we met when I had just graduated from high school, and you're a couple years older than me. So you were in college or
I was
beyond?
a year away from graduating college.
Yeah.
I was heading into my senior year.
Oh my goodness. And so we were both serving at a Young Life camp together as volunteers for a month. And Araya was my work crew boss, they called it. And so she was a mentor to me at that point, and on and off for many years after, speaking words that Araya really have stayed with me throughout the last 2.5 decades in more ways than you know. So I just am continually grateful for the way God has used you to shape me from very early on in my life and my faith journey. And so what a gift to have you here now at this point. So I want people to know who you are. I'm going to read just a bio from your website so that they hear the official intro, and then we'll jump into our conversation.
Okay.
So friends, Araya Sonshine Williams. Am I allowed to say your middle name?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Because it's important.
Yeah.
Araya Sonshine Williams is the visionary and founder for Sonshine Interpreting, which provides excellent interpreters who love Jesus and want to serve in the Christian space to equip deaf people for life and ministry. Araya attended mainstream schools and learned ASL through deaf peers. After meeting Jesus, her passion grew for her deaf friends to know Jesus. As a student leader with Young Life in high school, the Lord placed a call on Araya's life to share Jesus with the deaf community. This call helped steer her college choice to be near a deaf school where she could continue to invest in deaf youth through coaching, mentoring, and ministry. Over 20 years later, Araya's deepest passions are still Jesus and deaf people. In 2016, Araya started Sonshine Interpreting, an agency of gifted interpreters that love Jesus and have a heart for deaf ministry. Araya advocates for accessibility to anything that equips deaf people for life and ministry. Wow. It's been so beautiful to watch your journey from a distance, Araya. Can you talk about it a bit more? I mean, we have your bio, but really, how did Sonshine Interpreting start if you could trace the roots way back? What's the story of how God has gotten you to where you are now?
Yeah. Okay, I'll go way back to third grade.
Do it.
When I started third grade, I moved to a new town. Deaf kids were in all my classes, interpreters were in all my classes. And I immediately took to the language. So I would watch the interpreter and listen to the teacher and pick it up. Fast forward to my senior year of high school. The mainstream program in my school district returned to my high school my senior year. So I didn't have deaf kids in my classes from middle school till senior year. Then the deaf students came to my high school. I had met Christ at this point through Young Life leaders that were in my life, and was a student leader, like the little bio said. Started inviting these freshman girls to come to Young Life things, interpreting for them the best that I knew how. I didn't know any better than what I was doing. Totally. Looking back, it's comical. And over the course of that year, I felt like there's just like benchmarks of my life, flags that go in the ground that I look back and I go, oh, I know that was the Lord. And one of those moments was my senior year, just feeling like Jesus saying, go and tell deaf people about me. So it really shaped and narrowed my trajectory of where I went to college and what I was going to do and what next. And to this day, this may be a common saying, but looking at things that I'm passionate about. I love deaf people in every context. I love
Mm,
interpreting, whether it's a doctor's appointment or a phone call with mom. All of these things bring me joy,
yeah.
but nothing like Jesus and deaf people. That makes me weep. That makes
Mm,
me pound the table of like when
mm,
there's an injustice. And so picking up on that nuance of specifically, I can professionally interpret in all these different settings, and that's great. But how can I do what I really love? Because what I
mm,
really love is at the heart, at the core of part of my image bearing of God who loves all people is that I just love deaf people and I want them to know him. And
yeah.
so that really then became the question I found myself asking: how can I have more purpose in my work to not
Yeah.
just be out there working hours and making money? And I love deaf people in any context. And this is really where my passion and my heart is where the intersection
Yeah.
of Jesus and deaf people in ministry.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Can I pause you for a second? Because I know that
yeah,
there's a lot more with the work that you're doing now that I want to
yeah.
talk about, but just slowing down enough to pay attention to what makes you weep. Like that's not a typical question that a lot of us ask. And
Hmm.
in the work that I do as a life and leadership coach, a lot of what I say is I help people pay attention to their own lives. And a lot of that
Yeah.
is like, what are you made to do? What is inside of you? What's your God given identity? And how is that going to overflow into your unique purpose in the world? What are you made for? And I know that's such a passion of yours too. But this question around what makes you weep, like, why was that important for you as you were thinking about, okay, I really like it. I'm interested in deaf culture. I'm interested in sign language. But what was the shift for
Mm.
you that made
Yeah.
this kind of heartbreak so important to pay attention to?
Yeah. Uh, the turning point was
Mm,
driving home on I-65 from Nashville to Franklin, where I live, and I'm in traffic. And the difference for me is I love deaf people in every context, no
yeah.
complaints. Even on people's worst days, love it. I love what I get to do. And I was feeling a lack of purpose in it. I was feeling like just the fact that I don't have any complaints about what I do isn't enough motivation for me at this season of my life to commit hours and hours upon hours just because I don't complain. I don't have any
Yeah.
complaints, so that I'll just keep doing this thing. I want meaningful life. Like I want the things that matter most to how God's wired me to be how I spend my hours.
Yeah.
And if I get paid for it, then that would be great too. Like, you know what I mean?
Totally.
If I could make a living, I was the primary income for my family at this season. And I was like, well,
Right.
I can't just give up my work and go volunteer in all these places. But how can I find work that I love
Yeah.
and have purpose there?
I'm so glad you said that because I think a lot of people might be listening and thinking, yeah, it would be so great if I could take my deep passion and make that my job. But that's not
Mhm.
necessarily doable for a lot of people. It could seem like a privileged question to ask of like, what could I do that would, pay all of the bills and make me come alive and I'd be fulfilled in every moment of every day. And I don't think that's what you're saying. That's not the reality of most
Mhm.
of our lives, that we don't all get to spend all of our days in work that is both life-giving and purposeful and in alignment with our identity and passions. But how can we spend as many hours as possible doing the
Mhm.
things that we're made to do if it's not our work? But I'm hearing you say, I like, this mattered so much to me that I was looking for ways for my work that I'm doing for an income to also align with my purpose. So I'm just glad you said that it's not always a possibility, but if it
Right.
could be, wouldn't that be
Yeah.
amazing to dream about? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So you're in traffic.
Yeah. Yeah. And I just made a mental list of, I just started with 3 ministries that had been significant to me personally
Mm,
that were not accessible to deaf people. One
mm,
of them was the If Gathering. It's a women's conference that happens every year for the last 11-ish years. And so I literally just called them up and was like, I love what you're doing. What you're doing is too good to not be available to deaf people, and I can help you with that. You have a whole audience you haven't reached, so let me help you with this. Long story short, it was amazing. We went and another interpreter went. It was amazing. Came home that first night home, middle of the night. I wake up and was like in this excited, sweet little prayerful dialogue with the Lord. And I was like, that was awesome. I can't wait to do that again. And at that event, they talked about traveling to different cities and having these free, like citywide events. And I was like, oh my gosh, me on the tour bus, touring with these great people. Like, I can't wait. This is awesome. And then the reality hit of you're a mom of 4 small children. Your husband
Mm.
does not thrive as a stay-at-home dad. This is not realistic, nor
Mm.
would you necessarily be the best person, because what happens when you go to this city and somebody's like, "Hey, where could I get connected to a church? Is there a church for me?" I don't know the deaf churches there. I don't know anybody to introduce you to. Like, I'm gonna go home to my community, you know? So
Mm.
in this hour and a half, I just laid in bed and like prayed, asked God, give me clarity. What is, you know, and all of this download of what is now Sonshine Interpreting came to me. The name, the idea of interpreters that are excellent at what they do and they love
Mm.
Jesus. And how can we foster that with resources and training and developing to then better serve
Mm.
really the leaders that God's raising up in the deaf community for them to do what God's gifted them to do
Yeah.
for his purpose.
Wow. So it really was, I mean, so many points along the way, right? You paying attention to, wow, this feels really important, significant. It matters to me. It's both breaking my heart for deaf people not to have access to these incredible
Mhm.
resources and ministries and conferences. And also, this is something I love that I want to connect and introduce people that I care about, the deaf community. I want to introduce them to something that I love. This is something that's needed, that's not currently happening. Why don't I just offer? Why don't I just offer what I have and see what happens? And so I'm just in awe of the courage that it must have taken you to make that phone call. Like I'm thinking
Mhm.
when you called the If Gathering to say,
Yeah.
hey, can I help interpret? What was that like?
I remember the day. It was in October of 2015, and I literally was, like, a little bit breathless, and I was pacing in my bedroom, like, just
Yeah.
window to
Yeah.
door, like, pacing in this conversation. Yeah, and to say yes to that, and really, I would also just commend from their end. I was the 3rd person to say, "Hey, what about the deaf community?" And they felt like they were finally in a place of, you know, there was so new of a conference at the
Hmm.
time that they were finally at a place to say, "I think we need to trust God with this. We don't know how or where or what, but this is clearly God moving, that this is the 3rd time someone's asked, and we need to trust him with all of these unknowns that are ahead."
Wow.
So I think it was a mutual, courageous
Yeah.
step of faith. I didn't
Hmm.
know at that time in the conversation with them that Sunshine would be what it is now. You know, that really, like I said, started with that middle of the night thought, a little prayer
Yeah.
with them. Um, and I would say, like on a personal level, the opportunities beyond like starting something. You know what I mean? Like starting Sunshine. It's awesome. So grateful and so honored to be a part of it. And on a different level of like me and my
Mm.
gifts and what I bring to the table
Mm.
has been, I would say, even in the last 3 years, there's been some major monumental leaps of growth that I've seen and awareness that I've seen in me because I've been so uncomfortably stretched.
Ah,
And so in the 10 years of doing this and like
yeah.
loving every minute of it, it's really been, I would say the last 3 that I've personally seen the most growth in
Mm.
the specific like sense of clarity of calling and purpose and gifts that God's given me.
Yeah. Well, I love that you're letting us kind of behind the scenes in the process of what it looks like to step out in courage and, not to use like a Christian jargony type word, but obedience, right? Like you're saying,
Mm,
okay, here's my brave offering. Like, here's what I have. This is something I want to do. I don't know how it's going to work. I don't have a plan for it, but like, this is the next right thing, to use Emily P. Freeman's phrase. Like, this is the next
yeah.
right thing in love that I can offer. The worst they can say is no, let me make the phone call. And for them to also bravely say, we don't know how this is going to go, but let's figure it out together. And for you to be honest about like that fear and trembling and kind of, I'm sure like some sweaty armpits and, all the things that were happening in the background, it's easy to fast forward when we look at people like you and to see
Mm,
like, wow, look at all the things they've accomplished. Look at how beautiful they are walking in their calling and their purpose in the world. But we almost want to skip through the stretching, the uncomfortable wrestling that has to happen with our own self doubt, with the voices that I know you and I have talked about, whispering in our ear, telling us all the reasons we shouldn't step out, all the reasons we're not
mhm.
qualified. And so I guess my question for you, around this process, knowing that the process is almost just as important, if not more, than the product of what you're actually doing now. Not to
Yeah.
discount, I know you don't hear me saying
Mhm.
that what you're doing now isn't
Yeah.
significant because it's
Yeah.
beautiful. But I also hear underneath that, like the process of how God is shaping you, what he's teaching you about yourself and himself in this is just
Mm.
as important and beautiful. So, what's this process been like for you as you've, over the last 10 years, continued to step forward with, I don't know what this is going to look like. Here's what I know right now. What's the next step? Here we go. What's that journey of not knowing and still walking forward been like?
Ooh, that's good. I think early on, if we were to say like the first, honestly, probably like 5 years, I found myself constantly like, this is what I want to do with all of my time, but I have to make a living for my family.
Mhm.
And so it was kind of just this, I found myself more in the like woulda, shoulda, coulda. Like there's
Mhm.
always something I wish I could be doing, but I'm not. And so I was kind of in this loop of kind of shaming almost like, yeah, you didn't get that done because I'm working. And when I'm not working, I need to step home and like rescue my husband who's at home with four small children and a dog. So life didn't allow a lot of space for this to happen like I wanted it to. And I feel like there was vision for what it could be and desire for awareness to grow among hearing audiences that don't understand deaf people and being an ally to deaf leaders, to be a voice, to advocate, to bring awareness, like all these things.
Yeah.
So I would say I found myself more than anything either distracted by the things I didn't have time but wanted to do, or like really burdened in a like shaming kind of way.
Mhm.
I'm not cutting it. I'm not getting stuff done. It's just over here sitting. And about the 4 or 5 year mark, I made the conscious decision effort to time block some of my calendar for the woulda, shoulda, coulda things that I wasn't getting done. Left to my own devices, I did not have the capacity to like work and then spend time as needed and family. And so I started putting 3 hours a week on my calendar that this anything that comes up between now and Saturday or whatever it was, that's when I'm going to do those things. I'll make my list and I'll do what I can.
Mhm. Mhm.
But it was really just doing what I could for a few years until my like full-time income wasn't needed anymore. My husband and I kind of switched roles
Yeah.
and he was able to bring home a primary income, which really changed everything.
Yeah. And at that point, you were then able to spend more than 3 hours a week developing this vision for Sunshine Interpreting. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So we talked about this a little bit before we started recording, but I want to dive a little bit more into the stories that you were telling yourself, the voices
Yeah.
that were
Yeah.
telling you that you weren't doing enough. I mean, I'm asking for a friend here, Araya, who you may or may not know. She's right. It's me. It's me. Who I'm in this similar place, right? Like there are these
Yeah.
dreams, like there is this beautiful project that is happening in our community, this dream of women that are gathering. And it's just so beautiful and life-giving to be a part of this work of creating spaces for women to collaborate and create together and refuse to
Mhm.
compare and compete. And the events that are coming out of that it's just so beautiful. There's a lot that I could be doing and want to be doing there. And I also need to pay my bills, which is its
Yeah.
own struggle, right? And
Yeah.
so this sense of, okay, I'm either constantly failing as a leader in this space,
Mhm.
or I'm constantly failing as a business owner in this space. I'm never doing anything well.
Mhm.
And I'm never feeling successful at anything. It's always just kind of barely scraping by, right? And then you
Mhm.
feel like, okay, well, I'm barely showing up for my kids because I'm distracted here. And I'm, that sense of who am I? What am I good at? And
Mhm.
what is true about me, no matter how I'm performing? Like that's the constant wrestle for me. So can you take us again into that internal process
Yeah.
and the stories that you're
Mhm.
listening to, the voices that were coming at you, and how did you wrestle through that?
Yeah. I'm such a fan of you, Jillian. I
Oh.
love your honesty and transparency in such a casual way. The way you just said that was like so deep and rich, and yet just like, yeah, this is a struggle. And everybody else is like, oh, wow, like, where's the Kleenex? Like, you just said that so casually. So,
Hmm.
and you know what
Thank you.
happens when you do that? what happens when you do that is everybody can kind of take a sigh of relief and go,
Mm.
I'm not the only one. Like she just called me out and she's awesome. And so, wow, why do I feel
Mm.
so ashamed about the way that
Wow.
I'm processing because somebody else said it out loud and now maybe I can own up to that too.
Can I just let you behind the scenes a little bit
Yeah.
more to share? Thank
Yeah.
you for that, because
Yeah.
this is not something I've talked about publicly with very many people. But about 11 years ago or so now, when I started doing a little bit of writing and a little bit of dreaming about, okay, I have these babies at home, but I feel like there is more. There is more that I'm made for. And I love being a mom. And also, there is more
Mhm.
that I'm called to. And I was in a season where I was doing a bunch of reading and exploring writing. And I, at that point, read Brene Brown's Daring Greatly and had words for the first time for what I felt around perfectionism, like this battle with perfectionism and the shame I felt that I can never be good enough. And I was like, vulnerability is the key. That it was like this aha moment for me of, oh, it's vulnerability. And I felt like God at that moment dropped this phrase in my mind that I've held on to as like, this is the vision for my life, which is a ministry of vulnerability. Like it's all I have is to be my real, honest, messy self and to give other people permission to do the same, because shame is what holds me back from most things in my life, including like relationships of meaning and intimacy and connection, let alone confidence and purpose and joy. And so if I can be vulnerable and learn how to do that in my real life and teach other people how to be vulnerable in a way that is helpful and healthy and productive, then shame loses its power. And like,
Yep.
that's the world I want to live in. So that was a long aside to say thank you for naming that. It's a gift for
Yeah.
you to see that in me.
Yeah. Yeah. I see that. And I feel the freedom that it gives me. And I've seen it in my own life when I've been willing to be vulnerable,
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, I have to
when
tell
I've had the
another quick
courage.
story. Sorry,
Do
this
it.
is another interruption of something you said to me when I was 20. And you might be a little bit nervous to hear what it is, because we were serving together at a different camp and we were at Breakaway in Oregon. And we went for a walk on the beach one day. And I think you were there. Maybe Jeremy was speaking, and I think I was an intern in the kitchen or something that year.
Oh
And
yeah. Ooh,
we were walking on the
we would
beach.
drink the 32-ounce Death Can Wait, We Must Hydrate and race to drink the biggest
Yes.
32 ounces of water on the back
Totally,
deck.
totally. Both of us college athletes, so competitive, right? Like, okay, we're going to win. We're going to win. And we were walking on the beach one day. Maybe I had a day off or something. And I was really struggling with something, but didn't know I was allowed to say out loud what I was struggling with. And I've told this story many times since then. But you looked at me and you're like, Jillian, don't you know that everyone is carrying around their little bag of poop? Like we all
Yes.
have it. Like we all have a poop bag, and we're all like, you're
Mm,
not the only one that has stuff that it feels gross and icky and stinky, and you don't want anyone to know about it. And you think you're the only one, but we all have it. And here's the thing, to us, it feels disgusting and completely unacceptable. But there is something mystical that happens when we open up our bag that to other people, it smells like the most glorious fragrance. And
yeah.
I remember laughing so hard and thinking that is ridiculous and spot on. Like, what is that? Like, why does your poop smell so good? Which is like the most, that was perfect when I was working with high schoolers to share
Mhm, mhm.
very age appropriate illustration. But anyway,
Yeah.
thank you for that gift years
Yeah.
ago. You planted that seed. So you've modeled that for me.
That's really good. Yeah. I think when we become aware of our own, if we're just gonna go with the poop bag, there can be so much effort.
Mm.
It's more effort to keep hidden the things that are hard. It's so much more effort mentally, emotionally, I would even say physically, than to just be real and this is what it is and I'm working on it and
Absolutely.
it's not a finished product. It may never be, and this
Yeah.
just is the reality. I remember time and time again seeing freedom, people opened to freedom when something has been said that is vulnerable. One
Yeah.
of those times was kind of recent. I was sharing about an experience that I had had interpreting internationally, but what I said was like I was saying this hard moment of like I blew it. Like I totally screwed something up and I had to recover. And it was a public, like I'm on a microphone
Mm.
and made a mistake. It's, nothing that was like ruining of the event, but I was devastated that
Yeah.
I made a mistake. You brought me all the way over here and I'm I'm not doing my job well. That's what it
Yeah.
felt like. And I remember somebody like on my internal team for Sunshine saying, "Oh my gosh, it feels so good to hear you say that you make mistakes."
Mm.
And to which I was like, wow, clearly I have not said this enough because I make a mistake every single time I work. Like
Wow.
I don't, I'm not the best interpreter out there.
Yeah.
And I know that. And I know
Yeah.
that I can make a mistake and be okay with it and own it. And if I am aware and distinguishing who I am and the gifts God's given me, the purpose He's given me, if I can distinguish that from the production of my work and my roles in what I do in this world, then I can make a mistake and not be wrecked.
Hmm.
But if I make a mistake and I'm wrecked by it, that's a flag. That's a telling of something inside that is so dependent on how good or how bad, because it can be a double-edged thing too. If I'm dependent on my work for validating me, then if I'm not the best, I'm wrecked. But what about when I am the best? How does that make my identity better? I'm living in a place of pride, which sets me apart from others, limits me to relationship because um, I'm not I'm not living vulnerably to be
Mhm.
like I'm just like you. I'm
Yeah.
just like you. I make a job. I make a mistake every time.
Yeah.
But I could be the best at what I do, and that can live out in pride that then isolates and then is
Right.
no good. No good.
So how do we do that? Like that's the crux of it, right? Like how do we know who we are apart from what we
Yeah.
do, Araya? And then
Yeah.
how do we live in that as we walk out whatever our God-given purpose is? I mean, easy
Yeah.
question, just like
No.
throw it out there. Yeah. Give us the 3 steps, please. How do we know who we are?
um, yeah. I can say my journey in particular has largely been over the last 3 years of identifying who I am and living in that and distinguishing work, role, accomplishments from my identity. A huge catalyst to this journey for me was reading this book right here, Living
Yes.
Fearless, Jamie
I just
Winship.
ordered that. We said before, I'm so excited to jump into it. Yes.
Yeah. The core of the message is literally what you're asking. How do we know who we
Mm.
are? To go to the one who made us. Because in my mother's womb, I was being knit together. My days were ordained for me, and like all these days ahead when I'm just forming. And so ask, God, I'm listening. Who do you say I am? What do you call me? Because it's not going to be what you see, and it's not
Yeah.
going to be how good or how bad I am at anything. It's who am I? I know
Yeah.
I'm yours. I know I can look in the Bible and see um, like his love, his provision, his care for me. These are truths that I can see throughout the story of the full narrative of the Bible. So I know those things are true, but it's hard to know. Yeah, I'm a beloved daughter of God. Yes, this is true. But is it like personal? Have I heard that
Yeah.
from you?
Yeah.
One of my favorite analogies, and this could just lend to the fact that I'm a sports person, but I love the analogy of my daddy sitting in the stands, just cheering me on. Like, that's my girl. Look at her go. I'm so proud of her. In the stands, like usually for me, I could always hear my parents' voices and what they're
Same.
saying. So if I, and sometimes when you hear someone calling out like, yeah, cheering for me, I'm like, yeah,
Yeah.
let's go. Like it gives you something. It gives you a
Mm-hmm.
boost. What if that was the only voice we heard of
Yeah.
a dad that loves us that says, that's my girl. Like, I'm so proud of her. On my worst day, I can't make sense of that.
Yeah.
On my best day is when I think he'd be cheering, but
Yeah.
it's all days because
Right.
who I am is not shaped or informed or dependent upon what I do or the roles that I
Mm.
play. So I just get to be his. I just get to be just oohed and awed over. And then to listen to what do you say about me? Who do you call me? And in my time of listening, I've heard him say that you're beautiful. He calls me beautiful. And I was like, okay, what else? Like what I mean,
Yeah.
what
Yeah.
And it was a really long time of more and more like, okay, Lord, what else? What else do you say?
Mm,
Who else do you call me? What do you call me? And the second thing that I've heard him say, this is who I call you. This is what I see in you. This is how I've made you, is fearless pursuer. So if he calls me beautiful and he calls me fearless pursuer, then what I do, I can ask him today, what does beautiful fearless pursuer look like? Here's my
mm,
schedule. How do you want me to live out who I am? Because who I am and knowing my identity, knowing what's true about me from the one who made me, that can inform everything. That
yeah,
can inform all of what I do.
yeah.
But the moment that what I do, the best day, the worst day, whether it's momming or business running or
Mhm.
procrastinating or interpreting, all of these things, it doesn't come back the other way. Those don't make me any better or any worse because who I am is decided only by the one who made me. And that
Yeah.
doesn't change.
That sounds like freedom. That just sounds like freedom
Yeah. Yeah.
to not have to carry this weight of pressure to do everything right or
Mm.
to even know what to do or how to do it. It just feels like freedom to show up as we are and be loved as we are and walk forward with what we have, freely offering ourselves in love to the people around us, knowing
Hmm.
because we are already loved, we are so deeply known and loved as we are. And I
Hmm.
appreciate that you are naming that that's true on my best days. It's easy for me to hold on to that. And also there are days where I know that, like I've heard that, but it's hard for me to remember or believe it. And I'm aware for myself of how many times I've asked God that question, like, who am I? How do you see me? Which brings up a whole nother question for some people about like, well, how do you know God's voice? Like, how do you hear his voice? Which I
Yeah.
would probably refer them. I haven't read the book, but I'm assuming in this Jamie Winship Living Fearless book, which I will link in the show notes. And he probably talks about that. I know I've heard him speak about it a lot. But I will hear something beautiful and this, a picture will pop into my mind and it'll be encouraging and strengthening for a day. And then it's like I have amnesia and I walk away and I forget. And I'm constantly
Mm.
like, Lord, will you tell me again? Will you tell me again? I forgot. Or on the days that discouragement comes or shame gets loud, or, we've talked about there's other voices. And going back to
Hmm.
your early story where you were talking about the other voices that are telling you you're disqualified or who do you
Hmm.
think you are? And I'd love to hear more
Hmm.
about that process too. But there are days where, if I'm totally honest, more often than not, those voices get
Hmm.
really, really loud. And some days it's easy for me to fight back and to ask the Lord to remind me, ask him for help and say, no, that I'm not going to listen to that voice. Or honestly, something that's been really instrumental for me in the past couple of years is asking my friends to help remind me who I am. One, will you pray for me? And two, will you remind me who I am? Will you remind me what God says? I'm having a hard time hearing or believing it from him. Will you tell me? Tell me again. I know I feel too insecure to ask again. I know I'm needy. I feel needy. I feel like I've, you know, asked for too much encouragement lately, but will you tell me again? Will you tell me again
Hmm.
who I am? And so that's been really
Hmm.
helpful for me. But the shame that I often feel over needing to hear who I am again and again and again often keeps me from asking because I should know better by now. I shouldn't need to be encouraged again or reminded again. So I'm wondering if you can speak to those voices, those other voices that come against us and
Yeah.
make us feel bad for needing to hear who we are and needing to
Yeah.
be reminded. What encouragement would you give?
That's really good. Thanks for saying that. I would say there's a noticing that is important, but it's not just noticing the shame, the condemning thoughts, the lying things. There's also a noticing of where grace is showing up and where do I sense even a flicker of light, of
Mhm.
hope, of a sense of like you're not alone, of belonging. That's grace. And the journey for me, I would say, has had many facets to it. One of the facets is I see a spiritual director every month, and I am so hard on myself. I am never doing enough. And spiritual direction time has helped me to see, like outside of myself, how hard I am on myself, and that the voice that I'm saying to myself, like, yeah, you haven't done your reading today. You haven't done what you said you were going to do. You haven't worked out for 5 days. Like these
Yeah.
are things that I'm
Hmm.
telling myself that I'm not cutting it.
Yeah.
If I could say, literally, I said this to her one time. I was like, the thing that keeps coming to my head is get your shit together. And I can't get, like, I can't, like, I just find myself saying that over and over. And she just goes, this is my director. She goes, that is so harsh. Like that is a mean voice. And in my mind, I was saying it kind of playfully, like, let's go, but when she said that, I was like, I was taken aback and I was like, oh, you're right. That's not a voice, even as playful as I play it off to be. That's not a voice of what I know of the character of God, who I have known to be good. I've known to say kind things, to be full of love and joy and peace. So, what other things am I saying to myself that don't align with his character, who he is? And how many of those am I believing and owning and walking with? So the noticing of his pursuit of me, where grace is showing up and where the lies are, were a big start for me.
Yeah.
Um,
Which I love that you're naming how helpful it has been to have a spiritual director helping you see those things, because I'm so aware in my own life of how easy it is for me not to even notice what I'm thinking or feeling or believing about God or about myself. Like, I don't even notice until I'm brave enough to be honest with someone else who loves me and can help me hear myself, whether that's a coach or a spiritual director or dear friends, my husband. Like, I have so many people in my life who have been kind enough to help me see myself more clearly, if I can be brave enough to share what's actually going on inside. What are the actual words that I'm saying? When they come out, it's so much easier for me to see them more clearly, especially when I have a friend or someone else that's able to say, oh, that's not true. That's not very
yeah.
kind. That's not the way God thinks about you. So thanks for naming that sometimes the noticing has helped in relationship with others. Yeah. This time feels like such a deep gift. And I know that the people who are listening are encouraged, and I pray truly inspired to ask God for themselves, who he has made them to be, how he sees them. And before we wrap up, I'm curious if you were to give a permission slip to people who are listening, what permission slip would you want to give?
Ooh, yes. That you have permission to hold on to only what's true, and what's not true. Allow those things to coexist without being a part of who you are, to be only an observer of the untrue things, but experiencing only what is true. That would be my permission slip in a nutshell.
Araya, thank you so much. This has been
hmm
super encouraging for me personally, and just really grateful for your vulnerability and willingness to share so generously about your journey, your gift.
Yeah, I'm honored. I'm honored. So thankful for you. Thankful for the gift that you are in giving yourself and others permission to be who they're made to be, live in freedom.
Thanks, friend.
Yeah.
Appreciate you. Thanks for listening to this episode of Permission Slips. I hope this conversation gives you permission to explore more of who you're created to be. And if you're looking for someone to help you explore more of your God-given identity and unique purpose in the world, that is my absolute favorite thing to do as a life and leadership coach. So you can find more information about coaching in the show notes. Remember, your life matters, and so does your unique identity and calling in the world, more than you know.